the ultimate ground of all being in your worldview? In other words, what caused the universe?
I don't think there is an ultimate ground.
Again. No cause, everything's effects. No cause, only effects, folks. Turtles all the way down. There's nothing ultimate.
I don't believe I've ever said anything like that.
That's what follows, my friend.
I disagree.
You know what? Bonson says in Van Til, it's like an ocean falling in an infinite. It's a rock falling in an infinite ocean. It's always falling.
Discernible. How do you know things?
Depends on the subject.
Yeah, what's your epistemology?
I don't have some particular specific epistemology.
Are you an empiricist?
Well, that would be a particular specific epistemology, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, the thing is, you gotta have some worldview, okay? You can't just be a clown that, changes his opinion every 2 seconds. So you have to have some worldview, right? So, what's your worldview?
I don't change my opinion every 2 seconds. These guys hear me say the same thing every time I'm in here.
Yeah, honestly, I think it's unbearable with Ben's not spoken to you, so I let everybody have their chance, really.
Well, just to point out that I don't change my opinions every 2 seconds.
Yeah, what I mean is, what is your worldview?
I don't have a word for it.
Yeah, I'm not asking for a word. Can you give me, your main positions, though?
So the ideas that are...
He asked you how you establish truth. How do you do that?
Yeah, it depends on the subject.
Do I have to fish everything out of your anus or something, man? You clearly know what I'm asking.
It's not this, bro. He doesn't want to answer questions. Yeah, he always does this. So.
I don't always do this. Broad questions are a little bit difficult to answer. So if you want to know what the most important things to me are, the most important ideas are questions about modality and contingency, and finitude and mortality. That's the most important stuff to me.
That's great.
And most important ideas are that everything's contingent and that only finite agents have a reason to care about what happens next.
That's great.
How do you justify that? How do you justify that there's no infinite, non-contingent being that cares about the future?
Well, I wouldn't phrase my denial as an infinite contingent being that cares about the future.
You just said that only finite beings care about the future or something.
Only finite beings have a reason to care about what happens next, because only finite beings can, first die, or second gain or lose something.
How do you know the things that transcend time don't care about what comes next?
Well, because what happens next is a moment in time, and if you're outside time, there is no next moment.
Okay, can you give a defeater for the existence of God?
Just God in general? No.
Can you give a defeater for the Christian God?
Well, if the Christian God is supposed to be a logically necessary, a moral authority that exists outside space and time, and is the necessary cause of existence, those are the 3 things I deny, and I'd have arguments against those. But there's versions of Christianity that don't care about those claims.
Okay, could it be that your arguments are not sound?
I guess I couldn't deny some vague sense. That's a vague question. I just couldn't say flat out no to that. No.
Okay, so you know the difference between a valid argument and a sound argument?
Well, a sound argument is valid.
Yeah, it would be, but a valid argument just means the structure of the argument is valid. But the soundness is it real in relation to the true state of affairs, right? So I'm saying, are these arguments that you have, can you show that they're sound? Other than just saying, I think they're the case.
Yeah, I think I have sound arguments for those three claims.
Yeah, you think so? Wow. And so which means that there could not be the possibility that they're unsound in any way.
Well, I mean, that's asking me to believe that, like I know for certain I haven't made an error in my reasoning, right?
Okay, so share one of these arguments, and then I'll show you how you cannot establish an ought, that one ought to take that as a sound argument. So go ahead and offer one of those.
Okay. So the Kalam cosmological argument says that first premise is that everything which begins to exist has a cause. I would say.
Well, we don't really run that argument, to be honest. Like Greg Bahnsen, who I've been reading quite a bit of, he doesn't really like the Kalam cosmological argument, and he gives 4 reasons as why he doesn't think that it's a great argument. And so what he does is he runs a modified version of something like a Kalam cosmological argument. So I'm sure that, like Bahnsen, a Christian PhD in philosophy, how he found 4 problems with the cosmological, you can find problems with the cosmological. But keep going.
Okay, well, that's fine. If we're not going to defend the first premise of the Kalam cosmological argument, that's just one of my points set aside. So as for the only finite agent has a reason to care about what happens next, only finite agent has something at stake in every moment. Being in an eternal perfect situation would never have a reason to care about what happens next, because what happens next can't improve or diminish their situation.
So you're saying God cannot care in relation to the finite things of the universe?
Well, in this, for this argument, I'm thinking more of an eternal perfect afterlife. This is more about saying that finite life on Earth is the only thing that matters.
Wait, how? How is that the case?
Yeah, I'm trying to connect the dots here.
Because it's only finite life on Earth, for finite life on Earth, that what happens next matters. Because you have something at stake in every moment, because you could die in the next moment. You could lose or gain what you care about in the next moment.
Why can't God care about, though, the state of humans if he cares about them? Like if you're watching something, say you create a video game and you have, and you set these rules, and something is going to happen to your character that doesn't really affect you because you transcend it, but it can affect you in that if you care. So why is it that God can't care about the finite happenings of finite beings?
So the argument is supposed to be more about the desirability of heaven for us. Applying it to God, I mean, the question would have to be: what does God have at stake in some given moment? Can God lose something? Irrevocably,
but
lose something?
even if he didn't, could he? That doesn't mean he couldn't care, right?
Well, it would mean that regardless of what happens next, God won't lose anything. And he won't gain anything, presumably. So because God can't gain or lose something in the next moment, it doesn't matter what he does in the next moment, because regardless of what he does, he won't gain or lose.
But if he chooses to care about something, can he not? Can he still not love those beings and desire their best while you could say the activity of their life is unfolding? And can he not desire to direct them in a certain path?
But his behavior won't affect the next moment, right? In terms of him getting what he wants or irrevocably losing it, his behavior won't affect.
Well, Christians believe he has a desire to will, though, that there are things that he wants, though. So
sure, but does his behavior...
justifying his claim? You're supposed to be justifying your claim that God can't care about what comes next, basically. That an eternal being can't do that. Only finite beings can care about what comes next.
We're trying to find why your argument is necessarily sound.
What is he even talking about, though? It's nonsense. And then he's trying to trap you in some weird language.
I don't feel like he's trapped me at all. I'm just trying to understand.
No, I don't think he is. But
well, the actual point is the desirability of heaven for us.
Obviously.
What's your main contention? What's the conclusion? Like, what's the problem here?
That in an eternally perfect situation, what happens next never matters.
In an eternally perfect situation, what happened next would not matter. Okay, and we don't think we're in a perfect situation, and we believe God cares about our imperfect situation.
Yeah, we're not in a perfect situation, so what happens next matters to us.
Yeah, and if God chooses to be affected in relation to the finite, then he also can be affected by the finite.
Can he be affected in such a way that he loses something irrevocably?
I don't know. It's a good question, but I can't say I could answer that question.
Yeah, if God can lose something irrevocably, then he has a reason to care about what happens next to us.
Well, maybe it is the case, though, that in a sense, if we, that's hard to understand.
He can't lose something because he's non-contingent.
Right, but if he say that he desires an outcome, and then that desire is not met because of the free will of humans, then he could be affected by that. It could matter because he makes it important to him. So in a sense, because his will wasn't done because of the rebellion of a human, in the sense he would lose in that his desire was not met. Right? And so we even believe we can grieve the Holy Spirit. Even Paul says you can grieve the Spirit of God. God can grieve. And so in a sense, I guess you could say that in part, yeah, he can lose in relation to our decision, so it would matter to him.
So you think that like 1 trillion years from now, God could look back on this time period and regret something?
Well, in the Bible it says he regretted that he had made man.
Yes. Look, so if it's okay, so what is it? Obviously, God, what desires for us to have the ability to choose freely and to be able to love, right? He wants that. Now, the consequences of allowing for that can have certain things that are regrettable. That doesn't mean that the world isn't good at the job it was intended to do.
But do you think God can lose something irrevocably?
I don't think he's losing anything, no.
Well, even Jesus said he lost none of his disciples, but he did lose the son of perdition. So, I mean, and again, God can grieve, right? How can God grieve unless he loses something to grieve over or in relation to? So, so we believe that, God, the world matters to God because God can be affected by it. So if you want to use the language of lose or gain, I mean, I guess you could say he could do that, but he's God. In the context of his human creation, I guess he could set it up where he could lose or gain. Now, it doesn't mean that it he's going to sit around mourning it for all eternity. But yeah, we would say it matters because God is affected by his creation.
Yeah, it depends on the context. Like he could lose, like one person could turn away from the faith. He could lose them, but then he could gain another in certain contexts. But obviously the overall plan was that he'd be able to get souls that were, repentant and had certain qualities, even though they possessed free will. And he's got that,
So it's fuzzy, like at best. But remember, the point is supposed to be a claim about us.
I don't think that's fuzzy. I think that we've given you a really clear explanation, and you're trying to make stuff sound bad because you're recording for a video, but actually,
make stuff sound bad.
You've not.
But I'm talking about irrevocable loss.
Not actually answered the question that you were asked originally, which is how is it that you're justifying this claim that a being that wasn't finite wouldn't care wouldn't be able to care about what came next.
Yeah, and even if he were to justify the soundness of his argument as necessary, would it be the God that we believe in, right? Because for it to be necessary, what he is building on has to be the case that we actually believe those things. So I can't say that we even can agree with the grounds he's laying, where, again, his argument may be sound in relation to the narrative or the framework in which he's built it upon, but we may not even agree with that in the first place.
Look, if you think God is capable of loss, then the argument doesn't apply to God. But the argument is about our relation to the afterlife.
Dude, are you going to actually respond to the thing that you've been asked? Are you going to respond to the question, which is like, how can you justify? What is the argument that necessitates that a being like God couldn't care about what was next?
Oh, but that's not the conclusion of the argument. The argument is about our relation to the afterlife.
Now you're dodging, because that's the claim you made, and I asked you to talk about that, and you have dodged for like 20 minutes.
That's not the claim, though. The claim is about our relation to the afterlife.
It is. I asked you a question. I asked you to answer that particular question, and you have refused. You are still refusing.
But I've also said that what Bach says makes God dodge the argument.
Why would anybody want to talk to you when the conversation's like this?
But I said Bach dodged the argument.
Bro. Have a nice day.
But I said Bach dodged the argument with regards to God.
You're a retard, bro.
No, here's the thing.